I know why y'all niggas do not want to go back to Africa. I finally know why y'all niggas, black men, American black men, do not want to go back to Africa. I've seen a couple YouTube videos past few weeks, and I've been on actual live streams. I'm telling American black men that, hey, it's not a bad idea for us to go back to Africa. And the reactions when I tell American black men, hey, we should go back to Africa, is negative reactions from them. They say things like, we shouldn't go back to Africa. Fuck them Africans. Them Africans is whack. They sold us. We not Africans. We Native Americans. All this bullshit. Total bullshit that they're saying. And some of it does have merit. Some of it is true, has some truth to it. Some of it is bullshit too. But um, Africans did sell other Africans. That is that has truth to it, but not all West Africans and Central Africans played a part of the slave trade. Not all Africans back then were slave traders. So yes, there were Africans who sold slaves, but there were even more Africans who did not sell slaves. So we have to fix our historical ignorance. You know, we always say Africans sold us, Africans sold us. But what about the Africans who did not sell us? What about the Africans who fought against Europeans on the continent to end slavery, fought wars to end slavery? You don't think that happened? We don't think that happened as black people because they don't tell the true history, in history books at schools and high school and college. They don't tell the full 100% occurrences of what happened with black people, African people during history. They just talk about slavery. They don't tell the full, teach the full history of slavery, but we can learn the full history of slavery nowadays with the internet, YouTube, Google. There's a lot of information on the internet. So we, in this day of technology, Black Americans, white people, we should not be ignorant of our history and what took place with our people. Um, yes, there were African slave traders, but there are even more Africans against slavery than there were for slavery. You have to understand, during slavery, millions of families were torn apart. You know, slaves who were brought to the New World had families left in Africa. Slaves had children that were left in Africa. Slaves had parents, mothers, and fathers that were left in Africa. So a lot of African families were grieving because their relatives were stripped away from the continent, and that negatively shaped African society, obviously. A lot of Africans on the continent during slavery grew up without fathers or grew up without mothers because their parents were captured and enslaved. And you don't think that caused a lot of trauma to Africans? A lot of Africans did not like slavery because it was breaking up their economy. It was breaking up their families. So yes, there were some Africans who sold slaves, but there are even more Africans who are against slavery. A lot of black people, they use that as a cop-out of not wanting to return to Africa. And part of the reason why black Americans, some black Americans do not like Africa is because stuff what we were taught during slavery. You know, we were Black Americans were stripped away from their African names. You know, that's because the slave master, the European slave master, they did not want Black Americans to have a connection to their African culture. You know, that's why they stripped the Africans away from their African names. They did not. The European slave master did not want the Black American to have his African identity intact. So the European slave master stripped Black Americans from their names, taught Black Americans to dislike Africa, taught Black Americans negative things about Africa, taught the European slave master, taught Black Americans that Africans are primitive, Africans are poor, Africans are stupid. That's just so, Black Americans will not have a desire to want to go back to Africa and have a connection to Africa. Because the European slave master, he's intelligent, he was smart. He knows that, hey, these Black Americans team up with Africans or have a pride in themselves as Africans, then the European can be in some trouble. Hey, if these Black American slaves truly identified with their true African selves, they would have some pride in themselves. And if these Black slaves have some pride in themselves, they're not going to keep letting us European white people disrespect them and beat them. And they're going to try to revolt against us. Like the Haitians who revolted in the Haitian Revolution, they still had their African identity intact. A lot of the people in a lot of these Haitians in the Haitian Revolution, they were only 2 or 3 generations removed from Africa. A lot of them probably still spoke African languages. A lot of the Haitians in the Haitian Revolution who defeated the French, a lot of those Africans in Haiti who defeated the French still practice certain West African cultural religions such as voodoo. Voodoo helped the Haitians defeat the French. And one of the reasons why the Haitians defeated the French is because they still had their African identity. They did not forget who they were. The Haitians did not forget who they were. They did not perceive themselves as being niggas, Black niggas. No, a lot of them Haitians, they knew what part of Africa they came from. They viewed themselves as an Igbo man, as a Yoruba man, as a Ghana man. The Haitians, they knew who they were. And they were like, fuck that. I'm not going to let these white people oppress me. They had too much respect for themselves as their true African selves to let the French keep running that bullshit game on them. And they were like, fuck it, we finna turn up on these French motherfuckers. And Haitians were not playing around. And the root of that is because they still had their African identity. And it's like, I'll go on these panels. This has been like 2 live streams. I'll say to brothers, hey, man, let's go back to Africa. Fuck that, let's go back to Africa. Let's build our own shit in Africa. Man, they be like, fuck Africa. Fuck Africa, man. African sodas. African sodas. I don't like Africa. Then I'll be like, okay. Even if you're a Black American who don't like Africa, that doesn't mean you cannot go to Africa and still build in Africa. You feel me? You think these Europeans who have been building and working in Africa for the past 600 years. Do you think those Europeans like Africans? Hell no. You think the Europeans who colonized Africa, you think they like Africa? No. Those Europeans are racist as shit. They don't like Africans. They don't like black people, but they're still in Africa making that money. These Chinese people who are in Africa, racist ass Chinese people. These Chinese people, they're in Africa, fucking slapping up Africans and shit, spitting on Africans and shit. You can go online and watch videos of Chinese people harming Africans in Africa. When Africans go to China, a lot of Africans in China get discriminated against, and it's all online. Do your research. Chinese people do not like Africans. Chinese people do not like black people, but that doesn't stop Chinese people from going to Africa and making that money in Africa. Feel me? Um. So you don't have to like Africa to want to build in Africa, to want to make money in Africa. Feel me? I'm like, Chinese people, they're making money in Africa. They don't like Africans. Europeans are making money in Africa. They don't like Africans either. So, like, black Americans, why are we so emotional? Why can't we see the bigger picture? That's how I know the mentality of most black men. Tell black men, let's go to Africa. Let's build in Africa. Most of them will deny it and be like, oh, fuck that. The reason why most black men refuse or don't want to go back to Africa is because American black men, do not want to build shit. The reason why American black men do not want to go to Africa and build up Africa, build up the infrastructure in Africa, build a new culture in Africa is because American black men do not want to build shit. You don't want to build shit. And I respect black men who know what side they are. I respect black men more who know that they don't want to build shit. I respect black men more who know they're not on shit. I respect those types of black men more than the black men who fake and act like they want to build some shit. But once you tell them, hey, let's build some shit in Africa, they're like, oh man, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. These are black men on YouTube who talk about every video they make is about building, building, building. Black man, we should build. We should have some unity. We should build. And they talk about, oh, black men, we not serious about building. We not serious about building. We ain't shit. We ain't serious about building. And once you tell they black ass, okay, let's go build in Africa. Yeah, I don't know about that. So I don't have respect for those types of dudes, those types of black men who put on this portrayal that they want to build as black men. Black men should be building. Black men should be doing this, doing that. Then once you tell them, hey, let's build our own nation. Let's build our own culture in Africa. They're against it. So that just tells me, okay, you just point on the act. You're not really about building. You just point on the act. You're not really about building. Okay, so most black men
even the ones who even the ones who put on this act, this portrayal about oh they're builders, they're doing big things, but they're not really about that life. They're not really about that life. They can start a business, they can start a little company, but once you mention to them about building a nation, building a country, they're not about that life. Because building a company and building a nation, those are two different things. Building a nation, building infrastructure like buildings and plumbing that take natural resources and things of that nature, it's I'm not gonna lie, it's more difficult than just going out and getting a business license. But you know, these are black men on YouTube who swear swear up and down that they're builders, that they're making moves, that black men should be come together and build something. But once you tell them, hey, let's go to Africa and build something as black men, have some unity, they're against it. I don't understand that. Oh, you out here just faking jabs. You faking. I'd rather you just come up front and be real about it. Hey, I'm not trying to build shit. I'm not about shit. You know, I respect the truth more than people out here faking it. Y'all black men, y'all just not trying to build shit. The real reason y'all don't want to go back to Africa is because y'all don't want to put in the time and the effort to build Africa back up. See, if Africa was a rich, if Africa was a first world country, had the same infrastructure as Europe, had the same infrastructure as America, more black Americans would go to Africa. But since Africa it is, a lot of Africa is in poverty, a lot of Africa doesn't have constant electricity, a lot of Africa doesn't have plumbing. Black men, we see that and we be like, we don't want to, man, we don't want to build this shit up. Hell no. And I can understand that too, because building a nation is not an easy task. But still, man, these are black men who talk about they builder this, builder that. They let's go to Africa. They out there crying, oh man, Africa don't like us. Africa don't like us. Fuck Africa. Okay, you just don't want to build. You just don't want to build some real shit. Okay, I understand. Okay, that's just an excuse. That's just a cop out. That African soda shit. That's just a cop out because black men don't want to build shit. That's it. Um, it's crazy. It's crazy. I wish more black Americans would go to Africa and build because man, I'll be saying this like whether you like it or not, objectively, America is not the black man's nation. You got to get over it. You just got to accept the fact. Okay, our ancestors built the country. Our ancestors, fought in every war in this country. Our ancestors put down a lot in this country, but objectively, this is not our country. Black people in this country, we don't run the government. We don't run the healthcare system. Black people don't run the military force in America. Black people don't run the police department in America. Black people, we don't run shit in America. So how can we don't run the economy in America, anything. So how can we call this our fucking nation when we don't run shit? We're a fucking minority where a lot of our people are in poverty. We don't even compromise the majority of the population of the United States. So the white people, so man, we got to get over this. This is our country. No, nigga, this is not your country. Nigga, if this was your country, why do you face racism every fucking day you turn? Everywhere you turn on a daily basis, motherfucker, your black ass faces racism. This is not your fucking country. Get over it. I don't understand how some black men are against going to Africa. You rather be in America, who treat you like shit, or you face racism every fucking day. You rather face racism every day than go back to Africa, where you'll be more accepted with open arms because the people look like you. Hey, okay. That's just the self-hate that our people have. A lot of our people have self-hate. You know, the white man stripped us away from our names. The white man stripped us away from our African names. Told us to look down on Africa, showed us negative images of Africa on the TV. And they do that so black Americans will not identify with Africa and want to go back to Africa. You know, so these are strategic plans from our enemy, the white man, for us black Americans not to have connection with the continent of Africa. Because united Africans, black people, black Africans who are united across the world, whether it be from the continent, whether it be from Jamaica, black Americans, black people who are united and on the same page across the world are a threat to white supremacy. So that's why the powers that be, you know, has always wanted black Americans not to have the connection to Africa because, you know, there are powers in numbers. So you rather stay in America where you face racism every day than go to Africa where people accept you with open arms. I don't understand it. I don't really understand it, but I mean I do understand it because what I just said about our history. There's been a concentrated effort to keep us away from Africa, but it's sad. It really is sad. All right, you guys. Peace.